Hey everybody, it's Tom, TL Performance, here for another YouTube podcast, blog, whatever you want to call it. And I want to talk about the importance of variation in your program today, because especially in the general population, but in athletes as well, I meet a lot of people who do the same thing all the time. In fact, I met some elite athletes yesterday, and we were talking about strength exercises that they were doing for their track and field event. And there are certainly, for any sport, there are, and it's going to differ between sports, there are exercises that might give you more of more a benefit more relative to that sport that wouldn't happen in a separate sport like swimming and running are two drastic examples. So the strength program might be different. And then there's also just general strength stuff that could have a transfer to any sport. And actually, this time I'll take a moment to recommend a book. If you haven't read any of Ian King's books, a book that he just wrote a few years ago, How to Transfer, is probably one of the best training books I've ever read. And if you're just a general population person and you're just learning about training, it might not make sense to you, but maybe it would. And it just talks about the goal of training is to create a enhancement in whatever activities you do or whatever sport you do. And too often people get caught up, athletes get caught up in something being really hard to do, or just thinking that any old strength exercise is going to be beneficial because strength solves everything. Or if they find one thing that they really like and they think things help them, then they get caught up in doing that one thing all the time, which is kind of human nature anyway, right? We say, oh, this is pretty awesome, whatever it might be. I want to do more of this. And that's good. But then at some point you want to get dive in a little deeper and create a program that is a little more guided throughout the year, because there's a lot of aspects to training other than what you're doing in your strength program. So in the beginning, if you're starting for just to create the habit, then it can be okay to be a little more general and repetitive. But as you gain results, if provided that that's what you're looking for and you want to find the best result, then you can start to play with a lot of different variables. And there's a lot more to your training than just strength training. So it's really interesting to see, going back to yesterday, these Olympic level athletes who are really good, who are getting a lot of just the same one-sided kind of effort. And there's just so much potential to help someone like that. And there's so much potential for everyone to do better, because there's so much that they're not doing that might benefit them. It reminds me of a couple of years ago. I used to belong to City Club LA in downtown LA, which is it's kind of like a country club. It's except it doesn't have a golf course, but business people go, they network and so forth. And they had this program where they did TED Talks. I should actually look up who the guy was. So every week they would have a different member pick from a list of actual TED Talks and pick one that may be related to their professions. So I talked about it. I was one of the presenters, and it was about, are athletes getting stronger, faster, better? I think that's what it was. I don't want to give you the actual TED Talk. Yeah, here it is. Okay, the guy's name is David Epstein. Are athletes really getting faster, better, stronger? And so some of the things he talks about is equipment is better nowadays than it was 100 years ago. And we've also learned that there is a genetic predisposition to certain sports. So like in a basketball player, it's ideal for you to be really tall. And if you were like 5'3", obviously there's Muggsy Bogues, but there really aren't a lot of athletes that can make it to the NBA, even if they were good at basketball. And if they didn't have the genetic phenotype to go along with it. And that's true of even, let's see, like horse racing, for example. If you're going to be a jockey, you wouldn't want to be Shaquille O'Neal sitting on top of a horse. If the horse could even run, you wouldn't have an opportunity. Your chances of beating the jockey that weighs that is what, 4 foot something, 5 foot, they're pretty small and light. And take golf, for example. I've said this before. If Arnold Schwarzenegger tried to play golf, he probably would look really uncoordinated. In fact, bodybuilders in general are training for size and aesthetic, not for performance. So oftentimes, if they try to run or they try to do other things, they're not very skilled at it. So it just helps to remember that what you're seeing in social media that's so based on image is just that. It is playing upon our emotions and desire to look a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with training and wanting to be healthy and wanting to look a certain way, but it does require a little bit of patience and control to keep it balanced, so that your decision making is also helping you get what you want, but keeping you healthy long term. So I did this TED talk, and they talked about the genetics, talked about the equipment. And another thing that isn't talked about so much is so many more people now train, so many more people play sports, which didn't happen, that only really started happening really within the last century. So the United States, relative to other countries, is just massive. So hopefully my internet connection is unstable. Well, it looks like the video is still going. So anyway, the US population is massive, right? So from the gene pool is large to select and find athletes that are going to be able to excel in a sport. And I know Ian has argued this, and I tend to agree with him, especially speaking of the athletes that I met yesterday, that the ones that do become successful are more because their genetics have overcome all the shortcomings of training and all the beatings that they might have taken, and to become successful, not because they got smart training. It just seems that way. Someone is taking credit because there's enough of really good genetics to overcome the shortcomings. People are assuming the reason they're winning is because of the guidance they're getting, and at some point, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And speaking of American football as an example, I think that this is already beginning to happen, because just about every guy that comes in the league is hyped as some next major star, gets injured within, let's say, the first 5 years of their career. Now, it's not 100% of the time, but I think the percentage of when that happens is increasing. And in the NBA too. So I always forget different athletes' names, but what was the guy that came from Duke? I think everybody will know who I'm talking about, because he injured his foot in college, and then he's had a number of injuries since he's been in the NBA, and he's never had a chance to play and to even put stats on the board and realize his potential. And then if you were to Google his training routine, it's just like the same old crap you might see at a CrossFit gym or something else. And it's just like, it's not really well thought out. So there's a lot of potential for people to get out of training, but it will require that you think about what you're going to do and not buy into what everyone else wants to do. And that's really what I came here to say. Let me expand on that one more time, because I posted on LinkedIn recently, and I said, if you're always training to failure, so basically if you're pushing yourself to your limits every single time you train, then you're reinforcing the fact that you're going to fail. And it's a psychological thing. It's not a conscious thing necessarily, where you say, oh, I failed every time, but that's the experience that you're having. And that same mindset, someone responded, and I think that they were attempting to have a discussion with me, but they gave me one word, which is endurance. So that's not a question. It's not even really a coherent comment. So I didn't respond. It's not. Plus, if you're just going to buy into the mainstream thing, that's not really what I'm here for. I'm not here to even argue. I'm here to just hopefully help you to ask questions and improve the results you're getting by asking better and better questions and learning what else you can do different. So in endurance, let's say you want to run 400 meters, or you want to run a mile faster, for example, people just keep on trying to go faster and faster. and or they try to do a little bit more than they usually do. And the goal is they're trying to increase their work capacity. But there's lots of other things that go into your ability to perform something, not just at least in the physical sense. How often have you done it and how much have you done? And flexibility is one of them. The way your coordination is one of them, and your strength is one of them. So there's a lot of factors you can work with, um, that you could help someone improve their endurance for something without even doing endurance training. So just food for thought. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email me at tom@tlperformancela.com or comment down below. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.